Train World offers a fascinating look into the history of rail transport, featuring a collection of historic trains, locomotives, and related exhibits. The museum is housed in the preserved buildings of an old railway station, which includes an impressive main hall. Visitors can experience interactive displays and learn about the evolution of trains in Belgium and Europe.
Hello, good morning. Okay, I'm Alida and I will bring you around in our nice and beautiful museum, Train World. Okay, we give you information about the history of the train and of history of the station here as well, of course. Okay, so let's start with the first years of the train, let's say, okay? The first train is going from Darlington to Stockton, and that's in 1825. 1825, the first train. Now the train is an evolution because it was the steam machine that was invented first. And that was Mr. Watt. Watt with double T, Watt, okay? So he invented the steam machine, and that was something incredible because that was the first time that something was stronger than a horse, you know, to remove things or whatever. So the invention of the steam machine is really a revolution. And of course, you needed coal to have that, but we had it in the mines, okay? And you needed water, and that's how you could have your steam. And steam that you bring under pressure, you bring it under pressure, and that's the way, it's like a balloon, you know, you feel the pressure, but yeah, then it breaks. But you put it in a kind of iron stuff, and then that pressure, that will move your wheels. And that's how the steam machine could be added to a locomotion and how you can have your train. But all of a sudden, coal is heavy, the goods began to be heavy. Stephenson created the locomotive with steam, and he put all some carriages just next to them. And they were with dirty clothes going in, because they had offloaded all the stuff. And they said, oh, but we can also take people with it if we create something nice. And that's what the start of the train. And due to the fact that we have our first king here, because we became Belgium in 1830, we were ruled by the Dutch people in these days. Before it was French and then Dutch and so on. So some people were not lucky and happy with this case. So they're like, no, we don't want these Dutch people anymore. We want to be independent. And that happened in 1830. And 1831, then the first king comes over here. That's Leopold I. And he was the uncle of Queen Victoria. And that's how he had good relationships with England, let's say. So he came here in Belgium, 1831, and he will bring the first train into Belgium as well, to give us the freedom. And that was a bit the change that happened with the train station, the previous train station of Schaarbeek. You have the influence of the Art Deco. And the Art Deco, you see the visible iron that came over. It's Mr. Seulen who had this. And you see the nice ticketing desks over there, which are still here. And in the beginning, it was only writing a little paper. You paid for this, you paid for that, okay. But bit by bit, it changed, and it will become more automatically. And then later on, the computer comes. So that's a bit in few steps how ticketings were sold to the passengers, let's say. Now, this one, we call it the Salle des Pas Perdus. The Salle des Pas Perdus is French, and I can translate it like the Hall of the Lost Steps. Because you were waiting for your train. You were waiting. You could not go to the platform when you just wanted to go there and see already outside where your train is. No, somebody will call you and said, oh, the train for Antwerp is coming. You can go out. And then you could go to the platform. You had to show your ticket, and then you could go there. So all the little ones you see over here are made by workers. Now workers, young workers, because you had a future with the train company. Even you had to go to school until the 8th year. At the 8th year, then you were about 14 years. Now, if your parents were not that rich, of course, then you could go and work on the floor, let's say, and do some handcraft work. But all of a sudden, if you were, pretty smart, you could become like a supervisor or something. So you could work out of doing and working with your hands, let's say. So these are all works that they had to finish to see how a train and how a locomotive is working. Now the train station of Antwerp is one of the most beautiful in the world. Yes, in the world. Together with Grand Central in New York, which is also chosen as one of the most beautiful ones. But this one used to be a terminus, so just the train comes and get out again. But all of a sudden they changed it in the 70s. They decided to keep it, made a tunnel with a bore, and now you have 3 floors. It's 75 meters high, okay? So it's pretty, it's a cathedral. It's in German Lüttich or Liège in French, so there is not really an English name for this city. It used to be an industrial city, also with a lot of history. It's just along a huge stream, that is the Maas. And now this is a political game. Now a political game in a way, maybe you know, you don't know, but in Belgium we talk 2 languages, 3 languages if we ever should be right. We talk Flemish and we talk French. In Brussels that should be 2 languages, but yeah, all of a sudden it's quite international. We have a lot of newcomers. We have a lot of people coming from North Africa, which are living here with us. So it's a bit a mix, let's say. But anyway, when it comes to politics, we have different governments as well. So when something happens in the Flanders, then they want a part as well in the Wallonian side. And that's what happened years ago with this train station, because the Wallonian community wanted to have a stop in Luik for the high-speed train going to Keulen, to Cologne. And that was an agreement, okay, fine. But in the city center of Luik, yeah, you have a small station. It's about five platforms. You have 5 rails. So, okay, it was not possible to make it larger or without too much demolish. But okay, so they decided to have the outskirts of Luik. Okay, they had to demolish houses and things, and that's what is the result. Now, this is Calatrava, and he likes iron and glass. Iron and glass, that's a bit his mark, let's say. Maybe I can tell you in New York is one. It's also from Calatrava. It's like a bird that he made, the white bird, which is referring to what happened at Ground Zero. It's a huge one. It's 200 meters large. It's really huge. It's special. There is also a place for exhibitions, temporary exhibitions, and of course, as I told you, the high-speed train stops over there and brings you to Brussels or to Paris or whatever. Now, when they wanted to make a museum, they were thinking years about it for making a museum here in Belgium. We had a small one at Brussels North, but of course there was no opportunity to make it large. So thinking about where will we do it? We have to do it central because it's Belgium. We have to do it in, also in a language that everybody understands a bit the name. Otherwise you have to make it 4 languages. So Train World, that's why they have chosen that name. So we had space over here, and that was the idea to bring the train museum over here. So it was a very good, a good plan, let's say, okay. Her name is Juliette, but she's retired now. If there was like a train which came off of the rails, for instance, due to an accident or whatever, so he could pull again the train and bring it back to the working area, so they could fix it. So at the work area, so we have several work areas where trains, where the maintenance of trains was, and so they had like this static crane as well. So it's pure mechanic. It's meaning one person can just lift up 10,000 kilograms. And this is the inside of a steam locomotive. Okay. So the coil is over there, right? Where you see all the little holes. That's bringing air inside. It's a bit like a barbecue. It's a bit the same way, because it needs oxygen to burn, of course. And then of course you have inside, yeah, the train is coming by. It's a bit, you have all thin little tubes where the water is coming in. And so the water is there, it's not a lot, so it boils very easily. It's a bit like a warming system in your house that you have like gas, and you have, we call it a geyser, but I don't know really the word in English, I'm sorry. But it's a system to warm up very easily. And that's how it works, okay? So the coal was all over there, and here was the water, and then of course you bring it in the system to give it under pressure. I'll give you a moment over here because I want to explain what's going inside. It's not just ordinary museum where you have and summing up all the different objects and just see and follow it and read the explanation. No, it's a scenario it's created, and that's by François Schuiten. François Schuiten, he's like drawing, he makes things. He's also making kind of comics, but for adults and stories. And he was chosen for making a nice scenario for the train museum. And he wanted to give extra attention to certain objects and bring it in a story. So you start in 1835 with our first locomotive, and if everything goes good, we end up in 2024. That's a bit the story in the 4 halls that we will see. Of course, it starts with the first one, the elephant. The elephant is our first locomotive, but we receive it from England. And it's only driving 28 kilometers an hour. But for these days, it was pretty fast, because it was only a horse that could go faster. One we are very proud is a second from left here, that is Pays de Waes. Pays de Waes is a French word. That is Waasland, and that's an area in Belgium, still there, of Sint-Niklaas. It's between Ghent and Antwerp. Now this one was already going 60 kilometers an hour, and he was also, when there was a celebration in London, 100 years of trains, so that was in 1925 in London, was an exposition. I wasn't there because there was no, but this was moved all over there to show in this exposition of 100 years of train station. One short locomotive, and that was also one that we exported to China, because our second king, Leopold II, was also involved in making and preparing a line in China. That was going from Beijing to Wuhan. Yeah, we call it the danseuse, but if I translate it, it's the little dancer, the little dancers, because she's short, she's okay. You have the locomotive, and you have always something that is just behind it. That's very important to know. It's called a tender. A tender that contains the coal and the water. Then you have different carriages. You have third class, that was really for the poor ones. And you have to realize, okay, it's a bright day today, it's still okay, but don't forget what is coming out here. Yeah, the steam, okay, that's water, but of course you have all the smoke. Then you have second class, a little bit comfort, of course, and this is the first class. This is first class, and then of course this was not together when they were on the road, let's say, but this one is a royal carriage. A royal carriage because our king, Leopold I, who is here, so Leopold I, he brought the train to us, and he's the first ruler of a country who has his own train. The whole museum is possible to come with wheelchair, stroller, people who cannot take steps, whatever. So that's also something we have to say, because yeah, it's inclusive, let's say, that everybody can visit our museum. Now this is a tender, okay? I was telling you the tender that is always together with the locomotive, on one exception with the danseuse. The danseuse, the little dancer, as I told you, she or he or whatever. So the water is just next, is in this, that's there, the water, and the coal is in the little bag over there. So it was only for short distance that they could use this one, and that made him a bit easy to drive. So he also has a covered footplate, as you can see, because all the other ones are open. You need access to your coal and to your water and things. Now there was in England an invention, and which is the most important invention. It's a small one, very small, but they needed it to make trains. Not only trains, also ships and bridges and things like this. Now they do it with, well, you know, with the fire, and they melt it and they bring it together. In these days it was not possible. We have not these gases. It's acetylene and oxygen that they bring together to make that very hot fire. Now in this standard, this is water, this containing water, but inside are things like this, you know. It's divided in compartments, but underneath it's open. So the water is not just like one swimming pool, you know. It's divided in compartments, because otherwise when you have a speed, it can be going like this, and that's to keep it stable, okay? There is a mountain of coal, we will see it later on, and water you use, it makes steam, the water is gone, so you needed quite some water, so sometimes you add the water. So come on the footplate. Okay, 2 women on the footplate. That's quite unusual. It was really men at work. Really heavy work, heavy work. As you see over here, you had a fire. So it's of course artificial now, but just a light that's inside. But you had a mountain of coal, as I told you, and of course you had, the one who was responsible for driving, had to control it. That was one man, and the other one was most of the time younger, but he had to take the coal and just going on, and had to control the water as well. That was very important, because the water, the level of the water must have been always a bit 2/3 of the capacity of this, what you see. If it was used and it goes down and it becomes empty, then it's dangerous, because then you have like under pressure, and then you can have an implosion. So he always had to take care that it was really like, okay, there's no water, not enough, okay, we have to open all the cranes, okay? So that's, in the beginning it was pumping up from there, but all of a sudden they made it more easy work, let's say. Controlling the pressures, that was important. You could go backwards, so you can go backwards, you can push or you can pull, yeah? That was also possible with a locomotive. You have brakes. This is the brake system, because in the beginning there was no brake system. All the carriages that were just behind us, let's say, when he was on the track, well, there was a young man sitting on every, and he made like a sound, certain agreement they made. So they knew, okay, we have to stop. We are entering Brussels, Antwerp, whatever. We have to stop. So they made a sign. All boys on the different carriages had to come, and there was a big stick just against the wheels, so that it was used as a brake. So pretty dangerous as well. Okay. But it is a bit an evolution, like the tracks, making the tracks. And it was hard work, because you needed all broken stone, you know, rocks broken. Because the difference between a tram you see in front of the train station, which is driving on the same level as a car, but it's pretty hard, you know? It's not really like comfortable drive. Here in the train is different. And then of course you have all these oak beams, which of course, that was also bringing balance as well, and keep the tracks on the right way. Now, the width of the tracks, that was chosen by Stephenson, because he was realizing that in the old days with the Romans, as you see, like, what is it, Gladiator and things like this, you know, Russell Crowe in the movie, or even Ben-Hur, and going back in time, you see in the arena, you see the competitions and the slaves and so on. So you see the 2 horses with a carriage where they were really like doing courses, and that was the right, to pull this cart by 2 horses. And he took that wide, and this is 1.435 meter. So that is the standard width. Okay, the standard. You have even wider, 1.6 in Ireland, for instance. But Ireland is an island. If something goes on and you have only one track, For instance, let's say in a certain village, you have only one track. One train, and sometimes in villages, in train stations in villages, you have two tracks. So that one train can go there and they cross each other, you know? They know about the time, they know when they have the right time to leave and to go. But all of a sudden, in the old days, when there was no communication like we have today, yeah, how could you warn your colleague that you had a problem with your train? Well, there was a thing to do. Well, you have like, it's like gunpowder. You had small little, yeah, a bit like a pill, let's say. Huh? So gunpowder, and you were here and you think, oh, my colleague will come with the train and he's going to really smash my train. No, somebody's walking about, let's say, half a mile over there, or even a bit further, brings that pill on the tracks. Then he goes a little bit further away, another little mile, and brings it again on the track, right? So when somebody comes from over there, I'm here with a problem, he comes here, and this, yeah, the one who's responsible is saying, oh, what's going on? Oh, I hear something, but he's not sure. So he will pay attention. When he takes a second one and it does patch, like something like a little bomb, not really a bomb, but a small one, then he says, oh, something is going on. I really have to stop. So in 1935, in Belgium, we will have the first electric train. Because before, you had steam locomotive and you had diesel. Diesel was already at the end of 1800s. So the first electric train that was invented by Mr. Siemens, he invented at the end of 1800 already an electric train. This a bit everything, equipment, whatever. He was the first big boss, let's say, of the railway company of Belgium. It was not the NMBS like we have today, which is later. That is about 1927 that it was founded. But the Belgium Railway Company, he was the founder. Behind this iron fence are a bit more precious things, you know. So even in the drawings you have little objects, you can open them all. Yeah, so it's a bit everything. Here you have things of value as well. You're able and to show them all, you know. So these are books with all the information when your train is, you know, old train stations, because a lot of them are also demolished. These are toys of the royal family. It's not for ordinary people. It was quite expensive, I think so. Huh? And this one is a first class seating area. Now, this second hall, this is just the second hall. So you see, we were on a road for a long time already. This go about traction. So how is a train going by traction? We have the steam, you see it immediately. This is one very special. I will explain a bit more about him. Then we have at that side, we have the diesel, which we call it Michelin, you know, the tires, Michelin, maybe also by good restaurants. We have also the stars of Michelin. I don't know if they come to America as well, but yeah, it's a small one. It's a small one to bring people from outside the town, inside the town. It's a small train, just to have enough space, you know. This one is electric. It's one of the first electric ones, as you can see. You always can see the pantograph taking electricity. But to explain this one, well, we are very proud of this one. This is the Atlantic. You have the Pacific. In America, you have Pacific, but we have the Atlantic. And this is type 12. Well, it is the fastest steam train we will have. It's made in 1939, so just before World War II, unfortunately. So that's a bit a pity, because he could not really do his thing, let's say. But he could go 160 kilometers an hour. So if you compare it with the elephant we had at the beginning, 28 kilometers, and now in 1939, we have 160 kilometers, which is really, wow, pretty fast. The way he's designed, very aerodynamic, you see? It's really like a bullet, and it's going just through the air. But in the beginning, yeah, they gave him names. But after a while, when this invention was going really good, they made copies of the same kind of locomotive. So they could not give names anymore. They gave them type numbers. And this is type 12, okay? So we had type 18 already in the first hall and type 10. And the other two had names because it was Pays de Waes and it was the danseuse. That was type 51. So they had 45 of these ones. 45 copies of the danseuse they made. So they give them numbers. So you can see 12004 because they made only 6 of these. Unfortunately, only 6, because it was the end of locomotive, you know, it was a bit the end. But yeah, sometimes you can see other numbers, yeah. And you see the coal is warming up, the water, I told you, with all the small small tubes bringing the water, and this is where the pressure will be made, so to remove your wheels, you know. And removing your wheels is a bit like a bike. So you have your pedals with the bike, you know, you go this. Well, this is also at the other side, it's 180 degrees different because it's like your bike, you see? Because if you do this, you never can start. So you have to do it like this, okay? So that's a small detail. Now, Brussels Central is a story that they wanted to make a connection between the train station in the north and the train station in the south of Brussels, because it's only 3 kilometers between the two train stations. And they wanted to make a connection, because before that time you had to do it by tram, by bike, by taxi, by foot, depending if you have luggage with you, yes or no. So even in France, you know, in Paris, you can't go from Gare du Nord to Gare de Lyon. It's not possible. You have to take the underground, okay? So it's not possible. But in Belgium, they wanted to do that. And they wanted to do it, and they had a plan just before World War I. And they come here, the train coming from Antwerp and making to the north and going all the way to the south. But it's an historical city, Brussels. So, and in these days you had no boards like we had in Antwerp, and that was not so many problems for the people who live along. But they want to make a tunnel. And so they had to take all the shops, houses, apartments, whatever, who lived there. They all bought the owners. They dig it, they opened it. It was really a mess. It was really terrible. And you have 6 tracks now. Yeah, you see, it's a lot of information, eh? So this is the third hall. And this has to do that the train is invented by men. But men will use the train for so many different things. And that's a bit the story behind this hall, let's say. Now, we start up with some nice pieces of art. And this is Paul Delvaux. He was asked in 1962 to make paintings for the first class of the Trans-Europe Express. The Trans-Europe Express, that was founded in 1957. Okay, we want to do something extra for our first class passengers. We want to show nice paintings of a Belgian artist. So people who were working for the railway company, and they had to change switches in the old days. They had to close the barrier. So they do it like this, the barrier closing. So they were busy with the train company, let's say, but living next to a train's tracks. And mom, dad, children, they raced up along the tracks, let's say, okay? So we have in Belgium quite a lot of these houses. But now they all, abandoned. Some of them are removed even, or have other functions. Some of them are a nice hotel. Some of them are, a brasserie, something, you know. First World War, it was ended up in a train. It was signed that we had the weapons go down, the 11th of November, and they did it in a train. It was a carriage of the Orient Express. But all of a sudden, it was Hitler who destroyed this carriage. But after World War II, they made a copy and it's still there. You can still go there. Another story about World War II, of course, it's the deportation of Jewish people. So we will just mention that here. We don't want to ignore it or whatever. No, we want to remember, but we have a museum in Mechelen where all Jewish people who were brought to camps, and there is a whole museum. It's called the Dossin Kazerne, and you can see, and there is the same wagon as you see over here, okay? This sensibilization, because you will see a car over there. Look, it will light up. This is a car taken by the train. Lucky there are no victims, nobody died, nobody injured, because it was a car who had like something was wrong with his engine, stopped, but it was on the tracks, you know. But all of a sudden, yeah, it closed because the train comes, and he can run out. But of course, his car, he can't move it anymore, and the train can't stop. So you see what's left over when a train hits your car. It's a very old train, it's a wooden one, and a very special way how you open the door. You even inside there is like a leather big ribbon, and you had to open the window, and then you could open the door. At the outside, because at the inside you couldn't open the door for safety. So it was a bit special, let's say. Now wooden trains they take out of the ordinary train, because if you have an accident, then you have really bad injuries. These are the Pullman trains that you know quite a lot in the Pullman. He was an Englishman, went to America and starting up sleeping trains. And then we come in luxury, which is of course the wagon-lit. The wagon-lit, which is known as the Orient Express. And the Orient Express, these are on interiors. Restaurants in the Orient Express. Now it's this man who is, he's the one who invented the Orient Express. Traveling by train is the best way to travel if it comes to the environment, of course. So this is a city like today, and this can be a city of tomorrow. And the fastest train, so the high-speed train, is the best way to travel somewhere, except going by foot. But yeah, that's not always possible, because it's leaving from a train station that takes a lot of electricity. Because once he's driving, he gives back electricity on the system, you see? This is something special. In a way, this is from Mr. Vierendeel, engineer. And he created a bridge where you needed less iron or cast iron or whatever that you use. So it seems to be, but we can't see it anymore, of course, in the Twin Towers in New York, that principle of this, having the right, I'm not an architect, but having the right tension to keep things together, that it was a very nice invention. And this is the high-speed train for Italy, okay? They call it also the Ferrari train, because a lot of things from Ferrari are inside, okay? And that goes in the major cities in Italy. So it's, I heard, I've never been there, but I've been to Italy, but never been on the train, that it's very good working and no delays and things like this. So that is nice, it is nice.